Mathis Croft had it all, a brilliant tech startup, Axiom Systems, and the woman he loved, Margot. But just before their major launch, he uncovers a devastating betrayal. Margot has been secretly selling their proprietary cloud architecture to his rival and her ex-boyfriend, Devon Calloway of Stryker Tech, for months. The corporate espionage destroys his company and his personal life in one blow. The Architecture of Betrayal, a tech billionaire's quest for revenge, redemption, and the price of unbreakable success. Part 1. The Discovery. The rain hammered against the windows of the converted warehouse that housed Mathis Croft's dreams. At 2 a.m., he sat hunched over his laptop in the darkened office space, the blue glow of code reflecting in his tired eyes. The energy drink cans formed a metallic sculpture on his desk, a monument to 72 hours of debugging. His startup, Axiom Systems, was 3 weeks from launching their revolutionary cloud architecture platform. 4 years of work, everything he had, everything he and Margot had built together, or so he thought. Mathis rubbed his eyes and stretched, his back crackling in protest. The office was silent, except for the rhythmic drumming of rain and the soft whir of servers in the back room. Margot had left hours ago, citing a migraine. He'd kissed her forehead, told her to rest, promised he'd be home soon. That was a lie they both told each other frequently these days. The startup consumed everything. He stood to make another coffee when Margot's laptop, still open on her desk across the room, chimed with a notification. The screen illuminated, casting long shadows across the exposed brick walls. Mathis walked over, intending to close it to save battery. She was always forgetting to shut it down properly. That's when he saw it. The notification preview displayed on the lock screen, transfer complete, final package received, D. His stomach tightened. Something felt wrong, the way animals sense earthquakes before they strike. His hand hovered over the trackpad. This was Margot's private device. They respected each other's boundaries. They trusted each other. But that message, transfer complete. His fingers moved before his conscience could intervene. He knew her password. They'd agreed to share them after the engagement, a gesture of complete trust. The irony of what he was about to do wasn't lost on him. The laptop unlocked. The notification expanded to show an encrypted email from someone identified only as D in her contacts. His heart hammered as he opened her email client. What he found made the room spin. Months of correspondence, hundreds of messages, attached files with names he recognized intimately. They were his proprietary algorithms, his architectural designs, the very DNA of Axiom Systems, all sent to an encrypted email address. Mathis collapsed into her chair, his breath coming in short gasps. He opened one email, then another, then another. The picture assembled itself with harsh clarity, each piece a small cut that collectively formed a mortal wound. D. Here's the updated authentication protocol. He just finished it yesterday. Says it's revolutionary. Thought you'd want to see it before the beta launch. D. Margot. Perfect. This is exactly what we needed. Stryker Tech will be ready to launch our platform 2 weeks before Axiom's presentation to investors. You're saving us years of R&D. The payment has been transferred to the account we discussed. D. His hands trembled as he scrolled further back. The correspondence began 8 months ago, right after she'd reconnected with her ex-boyfriend, Devon Calloway, at a tech industry mixer. She'd told Mathis about running into Devon. She'd laughed it off. Said it was awkward but amicable. Said Devon had moved on, started his own company. Said there was nothing to worry about. She'd looked him in the eyes and lied. Mathis found the contracts, the payment records. Margot had been receiving monthly deposits of $15,000 for 8 months. She'd sold him out for $120,000 and the chance to help the man she'd never really stopped loving. One email stood out, dated 3 weeks after she'd accepted Mathis's proposal. Devon, I know this is complicated. I do love Mathis. He's brilliant and kind and everything I should want. But you asked me to choose between you and my career once, and I chose wrong. This feels like a second chance. When Stryker Tech goes public, we can finally be together, the way we should have been.
The way we still could be. Mathis will understand eventually. His company might fail, but he'll find another idea. He always does. He doesn't need me the way you do. M. The words blurred as tears filled Mathis's eyes. The ring on her finger, a vintage sapphire his grandmother had worn, suddenly felt like a sick joke. Every late-night coding session where she'd brought him food, every time she'd proofread his pitch decks, every word of encouragement, all of it contaminated by this sprawling betrayal. He sat in the darkness of their shared office, surrounded by the physical manifestation of their supposed shared dream, and felt something inside him calcify. The pain was so immense it transcended emotion and became something else, a cold, clear awareness that the person he loved had never existed. He'd been in love with a fiction, a performance, while the real Margot had been systematically dismantling his life's work and handing it to another man. Mathis forwarded the entire email chain to his personal account. Then he carefully closed Margot's laptop, leaving it exactly as he'd found it.
He gathered his things, locked the office, and walked out into the rain. He didn't go home. He couldn't face seeing her sleeping in their bed, her face peaceful and innocent in repose. Instead, he walked through the empty streets of the city until dawn broke gray and cold over the skyline, trying to figure out what remained of his life. Part 2. The Collapse. The investor presentation was scheduled for 9 a.m. Mathis sat in the conference room of Hartwell Capital, his suit feeling like a straitjacket. Margot sat beside him, radiant in a navy dress, her engagement ring catching the light as she organized their pitch materials. "You look exhausted," she whispered, concern etched on her face. The face he'd kissed 1,000 times, the face that had lied to him with practiced ease. "Are you feeling okay?" "Didn't sleep much," he said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears, like he was underwater. She squeezed his hand. "You've got this. We've got this." "We?" The word was ash in his mouth. The 3 senior partners of Hartwell Capital entered, Sarah Chen, Marcus Hartwell, and David Okonkwo. They'd been courting Axiom Systems for months, excited about the Series A investment. This meeting was supposed to be a formality, the final pitch before signing. Mathis had prepared for this moment for years. Instead, he said, "Before we begin, I need to inform you that our proprietary code has been compromised." Margot's head snapped toward him. "Mathis, what?" "Our entire architectural framework has been leaked to a competitor, Stryker Tech specifically. They'll be launching an identical product in 2 weeks. The room froze. Sarah Chen leaned forward, her expression hardening. "Explain." Margot's face had gone white. "Mathis, this isn't... We should discuss this privately." "I have emails documenting the theft," Mathis continued, pulling out printed copies from his briefcase. His hands were steady. He felt nothing. Over 8 months of correspondence, including evidence of payment for corporate espionage. He didn't look at Margot as he distributed the documents. He couldn't. If he looked at her, the numbness might crack, and he needed it intact just a little longer. "These are fabricated," Margot said, her voice rising. "Mathis, please, I don't know what you think you found, but—" "The metadata is all there," he said quietly. "The encryption keys, the payment records, everything." Marcus Hartwell studied the documents, his face grim. "This is extremely concerning, Mr. Croft. You understand that this fundamentally changes the investment landscape. If Stryker Tech launches first with your architecture, our market advantage disappears," Mathis finished. "I know." "Then you understand that we can't proceed with this investment." Sarah Chen stood, gathering the materials. "I'm sorry, Mr. Croft. This is a mess we can't be part of." The other partners followed her lead. Within minutes, they were gone. 4 years of work evaporated in less than 10 minutes. Mathis and Margot sat alone in the conference room. The silence stretched between them like a chasm.
How long have you known? She finally asked. Her voice was small, stripped of pretense. 3 days. And you said nothing? You let me come here. You humiliated me in front of... I humiliated you? The numbness cracked. Rage poured through, hot and terrible. You sold my work? You took everything I've built and handed it to Devon Calloway like it was yours to give? It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. He turned to face her fully for the first time since the meeting began. Explain it to me, Margot. Make me understand how the woman who claimed to love me could do this. Tears streamed down her face, but he felt nothing. Devon and I, when we broke up, it destroyed me. When I saw him again, all those feelings came back. He was building something incredible, but he needed help, and You chose him over me? Over us? I chose myself, she said, and there was a flash of defiance in her eyes.
I love making these videos for you. If you liked this story, then please like, subscribe to my channel, and switch on the notifications for more entertaining stories. Please also leave a comment for any story suggestions.
Devon and I have history. We understand each other in ways you never could. Yes, I took your work. Yes, I gave it to him. But you would have been fine, Mathis. You're brilliant. You would have created something else. Devon needed this more than you did. The audacity of it took his breath away. You're actually trying to justify this? I'm trying to explain. Get out. His voice was deadly quiet. Get out of this building. Get your things from the office. By tomorrow, I want you gone from the apartment. Keep the ring if you want. It's as fake as everything else about us. Mathis, please. Get out. She fled, her heels clicking against the marble floor, the sound fading like the last notes of a funeral dirge. Mathis sat alone in the conference room for a long time, staring at the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Somewhere out there, Devon Calloway was celebrating his imminent success. Stryker Tech would launch first, capture the market, and ride Mathis's stolen work to fortune. But as he sat there, something cold and clear crystallized in his mind. This wasn't over. The code Margot had stolen was good. It was brilliant even. But it wasn't everything. The architecture she'd leaked was the foundation, but Mathis had been working on something else. A new protocol he hadn't documented yet, hadn't told anyone about. Something that would make the stolen work obsolete. He'd lost the battle, but the war had just begun. Part 3. The Reconstruction. The months that followed were a controlled descent into obsession. Mathis moved into a studio apartment, a Spartan space that existed only as a place to sleep between coding sessions. He sold everything that wasn't essential.
He lived on ramen and spite. Axiom Systems was dead. He let the company dissolve, didn't fight the creditors. Let everyone think he'd been broken by the betrayal. Let Devon and Margot think they'd won. From the ashes, he built something new. He called it Meridian Systems. The technology he developed was revolutionary, a quantum-encrypted cloud architecture that made his previous work look like primitive cave drawings. Where Axiom's code was elegant, Meridian's was transcendent. He worked 18-hour days, barely sleeping, the betrayal fueling him like nuclear fission. He found new investors through unconventional channels, venture capitalists who appreciated the vindication narrative, angel investors who'd been burned by corporate espionage themselves. He built a team of developers who'd been overlooked by the industry's traditional power structures. They were hungry, brilliant, and loyal in ways Margot had never been. Meanwhile, Stryker Tech launched their product, Mathis's stolen architecture, to moderate success. The tech press praised it. Devon Calloway became the darling of the startup scene, featured in magazines, speaking at conferences. Margot was his VP of product development, standing beside him at every photo opportunity. Mathis watched from a distance, his face impassive as stone. Let them have their moment. Let them build their house of cards. 2 years after the theft, Meridian Systems launched.
The response was seismic. Where StrikerTech's platform offered standard cloud security, Meridian's quantum encryption was unhackable, provably, mathematically unhackable. Major corporations immediately began switching over. Tech reviewers called it the most significant advancement in cloud architecture in a decade. Within 6 months, StrikerTech's market share began hemorrhaging. Their platform, built on stolen code, couldn't compete with genuine innovation. Companies fled in droves to Meridian's superior technology. That's when the lawsuits began. Mathis had kept every email, every document, every piece of evidence of the theft. He'd waited, patient as death, for the perfect moment. Once Meridian was established and StrikerTech was vulnerable, he unleashed his lawyers. The legal battle was harsh and public. The evidence was overwhelming. The timestamps on the stolen code predated StrikerTech's formation. The email correspondence between Margot and Devon laid bare their conspiracy. The payment records proved criminal intent. The tech community, which had lionized Devon Calloway, turned on him with savage glee. StrikerTech, built on stolen code, lawsuit alleges. The $200 million betrayal inside the corporate espionage scandal rocking Silicon Valley. From darling to defendant, Devon Calloway's fall from grace. Mathis watched the coverage with clinical detachment. The anger had burned itself out long ago, replaced by something colder.
This wasn't revenge. Revenge implied emotion. This was accounting, balancing a ledger that had been criminally out of alignment. 4-part, the ascension. 4 years after the theft, Meridian Systems went public. The IPO was one of the most successful in the tech sector's history. Mathis Croft, at 35, became a billionaire overnight. The same day Meridian stock soared, StrikerTech declared bankruptcy. The lawsuits had drained their resources. Companies had abandoned their platform. Devon Calloway's reputation was destroyed. Criminal charges for corporate espionage were pending. Mathis stood on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, watching the opening bell, and felt nothing. Not triumph, not vindication, not joy. The success that should have been his greatest moment felt hollow, tainted by the fact that he'd achieved it alone. The person he'd imagined sharing this with had never really existed. His phone buzzed constantly, congratulatory messages from investors, from his team, from journalists requesting interviews. He ignored them all until one message made him pause. Mathis, I know you have no reason to read this, but I need to talk to you. Please, M. He deleted it without responding. 2 hours later, another message. I lost everything. Devon left me. The lawyers took everything I had. I know you hate me, and you should, but I'm desperate. Please, just a phone call. M. He turned off his phone. That evening, he returned to his penthouse apartment. No longer the Spartan studio of his rebuilding years, but he'd kept it minimalist by habit. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city, thousands of lights representing thousands of lives, each with their own betrayals and reconstructions. His assistant had forwarded an email marked urgent from Margot. Against his better judgment, he opened it. Mathis, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know what I did was unforgivable. I've spent 4 years living with that knowledge, watching everything fall apart, understanding too late that I destroyed the only person who truly loved me. Devon left the moment the money dried up. Turns out his love was as conditional as mine was treacherous. I have nothing. The lawsuits took everything. I'm facing criminal charges. My parents won't speak to me. I have no one. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I'm asking for mercy. For the person I used to be, before I made the worst mistake of my life. $50,000 would let me pay my lawyers, maybe avoid jail time. I know it's nothing to you now. Please. I'm sorry. I know those words are insufficient, but they're all I have. I'm so desperately sorry. Margot. Mathis read the email 3 times. He thought about the woman he'd loved, the one who'd brought him coffee at 3 a.m. and laughed at his terrible jokes. He thought about the woman who'd systematically dismantled his dreams and handed them to another man. He tried to figure out which one was real, or if they were both real, or if it mattered anymore.
He composed his response carefully. Margot, I received your message. I've thought carefully about your request. The answer is no. I'm not telling you this out of cruelty, but clarity. What you did wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. Hundreds of choices, actually, made over 8 months. Every time you sent an email, every time you copied a file, every time you looked me in the eye and lied. Those were decisions. You said Devon needed my work more than I did. You were wrong. Not because I needed it more, but because need isn't what determines ownership or morality. You took something that wasn't yours to give, and you did it without remorse until you faced consequences. You're facing those consequences now, not because I'm vengeful, but because actions have outcomes. That's not revenge, it's gravity. I've spent 4 years rebuilding my life from the ruins you left. I learned that the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. That betrayal, while painful, can be instructive. That love without trust is just theater. I hope you find a way forward. I genuinely do. But it won't be through me. Instead, I'm donating $50,000 to the Tech Education Foundation, an organization that helps underprivileged students learn coding. They'll use it to create opportunities for people who deserve chances, who'll build things with integrity because they understand what it means to work for something. That feels like a better use of the money. I don't hate you, Margot. Hate requires emotional investment, and I have none left for you. You're simply a person who used to be in my life, who taught me hard lessons about trust and self-reliance. I wish you the clarity I've found, even if the path to it is difficult. Don't contact me again. Mathis. He hit send before he could reconsider, then blocked her email address. Then he called his assistant and instructed her to make the donation to the Tech Education Foundation public, with a statement about investing in the next generation of ethical innovators. The news coverage was immediate. Billionaire tech CEO responds to ex-fiancée's plea with charitable donation, ran the headlines. Some praised him, some called him cruel. He didn't read the articles. Other people's opinions about his choices had stopped mattering years ago. Part 5. The Architecture of Self. 6 months later, Mathis sat in his office at Meridian Systems headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the heart of the city. His company now employed 3,000 people. Their platform secured data for governments, hospitals, financial institutions. He'd built something that mattered, something that would outlast him. But late at night, when the office emptied and he was alone with his code and his thoughts, he sometimes wondered about the price of his success. He'd rebuilt himself into something harder, colder, more resilient. The betrayal had stripped away softness, naivety, the capacity for unconditional trust. In its place, he'd constructed armor, effective but isolating. He dated occasionally, always keeping it casual. He had friends, but held them at arm's length. He'd learned to be self-sufficient to the point of isolation. The lesson Margot taught him, that people were fundamentally unreliable, that trust was a liability, had calcified into his operating system. Sometimes he wondered if this was victory or just a different kind of loss. His therapist, he'd started seeing one after the IPO, at his board's insistence, called it protective adaptation. He'd adapted to betrayal by making himself impervious to it, but in doing so, he'd also made himself impervious to genuine connection. You won, Dr. Chen had said during their last session, but what did you win? Money? Success? Revenge? Or just the right to be alone without being hurt again? The question haunted him. One evening, as he worked late on a new protocol, his head of security knocked on his office door. Sir, there's someone at reception. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. A woman named Elise Dubois. Mathis looked up sharply. Dubois? She says she's Margot Dubois' sister. He hadn't seen Elise in 4 years, not since before everything fell apart. They'd been friendly once. She'd helped him pick out the engagement ring. Send her up. Elise looked older, tired. She stood in his doorway like she wasn't sure she should enter. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see. What do you want, Elise? I'm not here to defend Margot. What she did to you was indefensible. She stepped into the office, wringing her hands. But I thought you should know. She's in the hospital. Suicide attempt. She survived, but... The words hit him like a physical blow. He sat down heavily. When? 3 days ago. She took pills. Her neighbor found her. Elise's eyes were red-rimmed. I'm not asking you to visit. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I just thought you were a huge part of her life. You deserve to know. After Elise left, Mathis sat in his office as the city lights blazed below. He thought about Margot in a hospital bed, about desperation so complete that death seemed preferable. He thought about his carefully crafted response to her plea for help, his decision to donate the money instead. Had he pushed her to this? Was her blood on his hands? But then he thought about those 8 months of lies, the systematic theft, the calculation in her emails to Devon. The way she'd looked at him with love in her eyes while systematically destroying his dreams. He hadn't attempted suicide. He'd rebuilt. She'd made choices. He'd made choices in response. Neither of them could unmake the past. He pulled up the donation receipt from the Tech Education Foundation. They'd used his $50,000 to provide scholarships for 30 students. 30 people who were learning to code, to create, to build their own futures. 30 people who might change the world with integrity. That felt like a better legacy than enabling someone who'd shown repeatedly that they couldn't be trusted. But it didn't make him feel better. It didn't fill the hollow space where trust used to live. It didn't answer Dr. Chen's question. What did you win? Epilogue. The unfinished architecture. 10 years after the betrayal, Mathis Croft stood on stage at TechConf, the industry's premier conference. Meridian Systems was worth $40 billion. He'd revolutionized cloud security, invested in dozens of startups, and become one of the tech industry's most respected figures. The moderator asked him about his journey, about overcoming obstacles. The audience expected an inspirational story. Instead, he paused, looking out at the sea of faces, young entrepreneurs, seasoned developers, investors, dreamers. He thought about the decade he'd spent building walls around himself, about the loneliness of absolute self-reliance, about Margot in a hospital bed, about roads not taken, about the cost of being unbreakable. The truth, he said slowly, is that success is complicated. I built Meridian from ruins, yes. I overcame betrayal and rebuilt, but I also became someone I'm not sure I like very much. The audience stirred, surprised. I learned not to trust, he continued. I learned to be self-sufficient to the point of isolation. I learned that protecting yourself means keeping everyone at a distance. Those lessons served me well professionally. They made me rich, successful, respected. He paused. They also made me lonely. The person who betrayed me faced consequences. She lost everything. I won. By every objective measure, I won. But winning didn't heal the wound. It just taught me how to live with it. So when people ask me for advice about overcoming obstacles, I don't know what to say. Work hard? Sure. Don't give up? Absolutely. Protect yourself? Of course. But also understand that protection has a price. Success has a price. Everything has a price. I'm still trying to figure out if what I've built was worth what I've lost. The audience was silent. This wasn't the inspirational message they'd expected. Later, a young woman approached him, 25, eyes bright with ambition. Mr. Croft, I'm Sarah Lynn. I'm one of the scholarship recipients from the Tech Education Foundation, from the donation you made years ago. Your money changed my life. I just wanted to say thank you. Mathis looked at her. This person whose trajectory he'd altered with a decision made partially out of spite, partially out of principle. She was real. Her gratitude was real. The opportunity she'd received was real. Maybe that was the answer. Not a clean resolution, not a happy ending, but something real and complex and human. He'd been broken, and in his brokenness, he'd done things both admirable and cold. He'd protected himself and isolated himself in the same motion. He'd won and lost in ways that couldn't be quantified. You're welcome, he said, and meant it. What are you working on? As they talked, as this stranger shared her dreams and projects with infectious enthusiasm, Mathis felt something crack in the armor he'd built. Not a break, he was too practiced at protection for that, but maybe a door, slightly ajar. Maybe winning wasn't about being impervious to pain. Maybe it was about learning to risk it again anyway. Maybe the best revenge wasn't success, but becoming someone who could still trust despite having been betrayed. Maybe the architecture he most needed to rebuild wasn't his company or his code, but the parts of himself that Margot's betrayal had demolished. As he walked out of the conference center that evening, the city spreading before him in rivers of light, Mathis Croft realized that his story wasn't over. The betrayal was a chapter, not the ending. What he built next, not in code or companies, but in the messy architecture of human connection, remained unwritten. The question wasn't whether he'd won or lost. The question was whether he could learn to be vulnerable again, to trust again, to love again, despite knowing exactly how badly it could end. That was the real challenge, the real rebuild, the real test of who he'd become in the aftermath of destruction. And unlike code, there was no clear solution, only the willingness to try. The end.
I love making these videos for you. If you liked this story, then please like, subscribe to my channel, and switch on the notifications for more entertaining stories. Please also leave a comment for any story suggestions.